So far, there's been no progress. I would say most of the New York delegation is going to vote no. We believe will have a severe impact on New York, especially the downstate area that we represent, where the property taxes and the state income tax level is high, and so much of that would be lost.
Tax reform and reduction is something that I'm very much in favor of and has a great deal of appeal for most Americans. I believe that if we start getting into healthcare issues with the individual mandate, that we send a very mixed message.
I wouldn't vote for this Senate version. Bottom line, there's a real problem here. I'm assuming we'll be able to get to a yes. Yeah, I think this is a very solvable problem, but we need a dedication to solve it.
Oh, someone who makes sense. The House is set to vote today on the Republican plan to cut taxes by more than $1.4 trillion. But as President Trump and Republican leaders push to get a plan over the finish line before year's end, there is real opposition against it. Heidi Prisbilla, where does that opposition begin and end?
There was already opposition before members of Congress and the GOP leadership decided to throw this Obamacare mandate repeal wrench in. So here what you've done is you've locked in no Democrat support, and that's before you even get to some of the wild cards like Susan Collins, like John McCain, who helped hold up the Obamacare repeal before. But now you're also inviting the ire of groups like the AMA, the American Medical Association, is strapping on the armor. Mika, here's what's going on. I met yesterday with Senator Bob Casey of Pennsylvania, Democrat. They are livid. He came in waving an article from a GOP member of Congress who said and explained essentially why they're doing this. He said, if we don't do this, the donors are saying they will never take our phone calls again. And I think that explains, for example, why they're doing this Obamacare gambit to try and make that corporate tax cut real, so that basically the individual rate reductions would expire, but the corporate tax rate, they could go back to their donors and they can say, we're giving you something tangible and we would make this permanent. But in terms of the politics of it, look where this tax bill was before they even decided to embark on this gambit. A lot of people already viewed it as being for the rich, as being for businesses.
Profile in courage once again, Willie Geist.
Yeah, Jeremy, what's your reporting on this in terms of this being a profile in courage?
Heidi's exactly right. It's donor-driven.
Yeah.
You go out into congressional town halls, you talk to voters. Tax cuts are not on their mind. Obamacare repeal is. Getting a job that pays well is. And to the extent that tax cuts kind of, help that along, sure, people want the idea, or they like the idea of a tax cut theoretically, but this is not something that people are banging down the door for. It's entirely donor driven. And up against that kind of pressure with a deadline at the end of the year, it's hard to envision a scenario that could create sloppier public policy.
And that's reflected in the legislation, the proposed legislation, that it's donor-driven, Rick. It's big corporate tax cuts, and it benefits big companies.
Yeah, I've said for months that you're going to lose the public argument, and then when the public is behind something, the Congress will move. The public is not behind this. I think the tax bill, look, it's in some sense it's marginal, but I think making tax cuts permanent for businesses is an important thing because businesses need to plan, right? So making it permanent is an important thing. They can't get to there on the individual because the math doesn't add up. But there isn't really a communication strategy to make this thing pass, which is why the numbers are so low. Then you have a president whose numbers are low and no political capital. And therefore, it's easy for the Democrats, frankly, to pick it apart. And that's what they've done, and it's not likely to pass.
The other risk here, I think, is turning this into a fight that they already lost a couple times. Right. That's a fight over health care, a fight over Obamacare. And I mean, the idea here of attaching this repeal of the individual mandate, the polling on that, if you just isolate the mandate, the mandate is unpopular. So theoretically, you put that in there, it's a popular thing to do. The problem is it becomes just a broader fight about Obamacare, which we already had. We saw how the politics of that broke down. We saw who the Republicans had trouble corralling in the Senate. And so it becomes that issue again. With that mandate being an issue, McCain, do you lose him? Do you lose Murkowski? Do you lose Collins? You've already lost Johnson. Then if you pull the mandate out to keep those guys on board, do you lose the Rand Pauls? Do you lose the Cruzes? Right. Do you lose when you have the same dynamics that sunk healthcare over the summer? could impair a list.
I don't understand
now that you brought the mandate into it.
argument. I understand about the repealing Obamacare, but the mandate is very unpopular. I think, in a sense, it's elegant that they put it in, because if Obamacare is so popular, then everybody's going to stand on there. And why?
But I think the reason was this: what sunk public opinion this summer on healthcare? It was the stat that was out there about millions of people, potentially tens of millions of people, losing their health insurance. So
but how is that going to happen with removing the mandate?
You pull the mandate. Well, you pull the mandate out. First of all, if the costs go up, you have people who'd opt out by choice. That's certainly a part of it. Well, if you remove the mandate, people would say, I don't have to buy it anymore, I'm not going to take it. So we know some people would opt out by choice, but the question is, if the costs are projected to go up because the system starts to collapse because you don't have the mandate that keeps the costs under control, then people are forced out. Other people are forced out because they can't afford it.
CBO says, and that's where you get the scoring, CBO says all these people will drop out if you don't have a mandate, right? But CBO underestimated the number of people who were going to sign up to Obamacare by 60%.
That was the argument we had this summer. We had the argument over CBO stats this summer.
8 of 10 people who don't opt in and pay the fine are people who makes less than $50,000. I don't see. What I'm interested in is, why does dynamic scoring work here and dynamic scoring doesn't work on the tax plan? It's like every Democrat will say, oh, if you cut taxes, there's no evidence that the economy will grow, right? That's dynamic scoring. So they want it static. Everybody's going to behave the same. But somehow with the mandate, dynamic scoring means if you don't have a mandate, everybody's going to drop out. They should use the same static numbers. Nobody will drop out.
Policy ping pong with Rick Tyler and Steve Kornacki. That's hot. Woo! Okay, still ahead, President Trump.
I fully expected to lose.